Hello and welcome to July 2024 Grace Membership. And today we are talking about arguing with reality. And it's a phrase that a client of mine came up with that I just love because it really sums it up when we're going through a period of transition or change, or we're just dealing with something in our life. A lot of our energy is utilized with, arguing with reality. And what I mean by that is that this is what's here. And rather than spend some time thinking about how can I be with this, how can I be in fluidity and flow with this, a lot of times we are really resistant. So we spend a lot of our time and energy, especially our mental energy, fighting against what's here. Like this, I don't like this can't be here, I've got to change it. And we can actually become pretty desperate or pretty fatigued trying to change what's already here. And so today I wanted to talk a little bit about, as we're navigating transition points in our lives, how can we take a moment to receive all of what's here in a way that doesn't feel so uncomfortable? Because so many of the people I sit and talk with, really, we don't want to look at what's here because we don't want it to be what it is. We don't want it to be true. We don't want it to have worked out this way. We don't want to be facing whatever it is that we are contending with. And so really the invitation here today is to first stop and pause. And really, and well, I talk about this a lot. And so let me know if you want more explanation on this. But in a horror movie, the boogeyman, the killer, the whomever gets all the power because the characters are running away from what they know is here. It's a horror film. We all know what we're going to get into, but the scariest, most anticipatory part is the part where we're like, oh my gosh, don't hide under the bed, don't hide under the bed. And then the killer is coming in, you can see their feet underneath, from underneath the bed. And that's the scariest part. But we all know what's coming. We all know that we're here to watch a slasher film, if that's what you're into. And what happens would make for a terrible movie if that person were to get out from wherever they're hiding and open the door and face the person and be like, I know you and you can't hurt me. And this is what we get to do with our emotional awarenesses, is we get to slow down and look at what's here. Commonly, we're facing a fear of failure, or a fear of making the wrong choice, a fear of letting somebody down, of letting ourselves down. There's so many things that we can be running from, but my experience with all the hundreds of people that I've sat with is that when we take this opportunity to face our own boogeyman, when we sit down to face it, we already know, like, oh, I know that was here, or that's something I've dealt with since I was a kid, or that's always the pattern that comes up for me. And then all of a sudden, we have more energy, literally more vitality available for facing this truth that we had been avoiding or running from or shoving against or trying to keep compartmentalized or pretending like it wasn't there. And so really, if you can slow down to face the boogeyman, whatever that is, whatever that fear or pain is, and really, and this is the part where the mind tends to jump in and say, well, I don't want to look at it because I don't know what to do with it. So if I open this up, I'm not going to have a solution. So better to not look at all. And the practice I want to offer you today is that it's actually about just taking a few breaths and saying, I know this boogeyman is here, or I really feel this fear of making a mistake, or the fear of doing it wrong, or letting somebody down, or whatever what not being enough, and having the choice of how to move forward reflect that not enoughness. And so you just take a few breaths. I always put my hand on my heart. It's a habit I got into years ago, and it helps to ground me in my physical heart space. And so I find that really comforting. And I was like, oh, this is what we're doing here. And it's almost like this cue to my mind that, like, nope, we're not going to spend all of our time and energy up here. We're going to bring the breath, bring the energy down into the heart space. And we're going to take a big breath. And we're going to just be with what's here. And that is very different than doing something about it. And so the being with what's here is not something that we are taught very often in our culture. We are not taught to value simply being present. We are not taught to value simply acknowledging that something's here without having a solution or an answer. And so it can be very uncomfortable for many of us to drop into this practice. But that's a beautiful opportunity for you to notice what comes up then also. Oh, I noticed that I want to do something about it, or it's so uncomfortable to just be with this. And that's where the hand on the heart and the breath come in really, really handy. Just going to breathe this in, let it be what it is, right? And so that can be really, really helpful. And so I want you to practice this and notice what happens. The vast majority of the time when I do this myself or with a client that I'm working with, most people start to feel, surprisingly to the mind, some ease, a sense of relief, a little bit more peace. Maybe the shoulders drop back. Maybe the tightness we've been feeling in our throat or our chest or our belly starts to soften on its own. And what's fascinating is that we haven't done anything to change the situation, but we're training and allowing our nervous system to register that I can be with what's here and not have it be a trigger. And so it's a really beautiful practice to start playing with, because it really creates more space. You can even imagine on every inhale that you're taking that there's more space being created, and we're accessing our reality through the heart center. And what's neat about that to me is that the heart is infinite. There's so much capacity to hold all the things, and it can hold simultaneously seemingly contradictory experiences all at once. Whereas the mind is like, nope, either we're excited about this or we're nervous about this, or we're happy about this or we're sad about this, or we want this or we don't want this. There's often these dualistic categories that tend to be in opposition to each other. This is good, this is bad, this is what I want, this is not what I want. And whereas in the heart, it can be like, well, I see the gift in this, and I am nervous about this choice, and I'm feeling insecure, and I'm also feeling confident. And so when we drop into starting to see the world and everything that comes our way through the heart space rather than the head space, it is far more expansive. There is far more room in there. And so it literally tells our physical nervous system that we can calm down. When we have all that energy coming up into our head, up into our minds, it generates more thoughts, it generates more thought forms, it generates more worries and more stressors and more duality, more should I, shouldn't I, do this, do that kind of setting. And really how I've come to define anxiety for myself and for the people that I work with is this quality of I land in a decision, and then all of these doubts and second guesses pop up, and then I'm back in my decision-making process, and then I land on the other decision, and I can maybe rest for 30 seconds, maybe 5 minutes, and then it's like, but, da, 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 da. And so we're just ping-ponging back and forth between this lack of ability to rest in having made a decision. And it's because we're trying to come up with the right choice. There's that duality again, like there's a right choice and there's a wrong choice. So you better not screw this up. And that's really what many, many, many of us are operating from, this place of fear of not getting it right, because in the mind, there's a duality. Whereas in the heart, we're moving into a space of neutrality of this is what's here. And if I choose to go out to eat for lunch today, I'm using a silly example, but then, and there could be a lot of shame around that. Like, I don't have time, I don't have the money, I don't have anybody to meet me out for lunch, or I'm spending too much time on social things and not enough time dedicated to work. And it's like, okay, then I won't go out to lunch. I will sit home and I will, eat something at my desk. And it's like, well, but you said you were going to get out more, because now you work, I'm talking about me. Now I work from home and I'm trying to be more social, and, and then I don't really take a break. I just work through, and that's not good for me either. And so we're just ping-ponging back and forth. as opposed to coming through the heart where we can receive the gift of either choice. Like if I go to lunch, I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll bump into somebody I know. Maybe I will be inspired to write because it's a beautiful day out. Maybe I will make a connection with somebody that I wasn't expecting, and it becomes a networking opportunity. And if I stay home, maybe I will get something done that feels relevant to me. Maybe I would take time to walk my dogs. Maybe I would rest in a different way that's more inward and reflective rather than outward and social. So my point is that there is a gift to be gleaned no matter what we choose. There's always, always, always something in there in that choice for you, even if it doesn't work out right, even if others judge it as a mistake, or maybe you should have made the other choice. It's very easy to do this to ourselves in hindsight, where we have more information or we see the outcome of what happened, and then we can get really down on ourselves. We can drop into judgment and shame and embarrassment and then a lack of confidence of being able to make a choice in the future based on listening to our heart. But in my personal experience, more often than not, when I make a heart-based aligned choice, it creates so much more for myself and everybody in my circle, even if that means I'm letting somebody down by not showing up for something or saying no or saying yes or being available or not being available. The reality of it is that we humans trigger each other all the time. So if you're trying to avoid upsetting somebody by choosing what you think they might prefer, I promise you it'll end up upsetting somebody, because we all are filled with all of these judgments and worries and stressors and this duality of there's a right way and then there's everything else, which is not okay. And so the more we can pull ourselves or invite ourselves into a new way of being with choice, with experiences, with whatever is coming through in the day, then the more we can hold space for anybody else who might be having a reaction. But the truth is that how someone else responds to your choice is none of your business. And I say that with all the love in my heart. It doesn't mean that we do something that we know will be directly harmful or impactful to somebody, but people are going to have their responses and their reactions, and that is a gift for them. And so whatever it is bringing up for them is an opportunity for them to clear some more of that pattern that lives within their own system. They may take it that way and they may not, again, you don't have any control over that either. But what would the world be like if you were freed from making your decisions based on the expected outcome of how somebody else might respond to you? So it's really, to me, this is the true, true, true definition of freedom, which is, fully inhabiting your own space and allowing everybody else to do the same. And when there's a fluidity, there's a flow, there's a freedom that comes with that form of care, that I allow myself to fully express myself. And I also welcome and allow everybody else to do that for themselves. And that means that how someone responds to something that I've chosen is not something I need to lean out of my center in order to address. It's that I trust them to be a human on this planet with just as much wisdom and insight and resources as I have access to, because again, we all have access to the same resources. It's just whether or not we've cleared some of these patterns and filters to allow us to remember that within ourselves. So use that phrase to hold yourself with lightness. Am I arguing with reality? And if you find that you are, stop. Take a few breaths. What's really going on? What are you feeling in your emotional body? What's happening in your heart? And can you make a little more space for it? Can you breathe 5 or 10 times, or until you can find a deeper, more consistent breath within yourself, and then say to yourself, or that part of you that's carrying this emotion, like, I feel you, I see you, I get that you're feeling scared, frightened, hurt, nervous, unconfident, whatever it is. And it's okay that you feel exactly how you feel. I'm here with you, and see what happens, especially as you're trying to navigate some point of transition in your life, where there tends to be a lot more decisions to be made. And we can certainly have decision fatigue especially when we're coming at it from the mind. So what happens when you drop into your body, when you drop into your heart and start utilizing those infinite resources that are available to you? Please let me know how this lands for you. I would love to hear what makes sense, what maybe you're not understanding, or maybe the mind is kind of glitchy, but the heart is like, yes, I know that's often what happens for me when I hear a paradigm shifting invitation. It's often that there's this dual experience happening where my mind feels glitchy, but my heart is just in her knowing. So but please be in touch. Let me know where you get stuck, because we are walking this path together. So thank you so much for being here today, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.